Hello, I'm Chuck Wooden. I'm also joined by my co-host, Monique Melanson-Hunter, and you're watching the Veterans Corner.
Thank you, Chuck. If you haven't seen the Veterans Corner before, it's a show dedicated to our veterans, their families, and those in the communities that support our veterans.
This is actually a third part of a 3-segment series. We've had Gerry Wright here. We'll introduce again in a moment. I went straight to you because it seems like you're always in that seat, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. But I just want to let the viewers know that this is a third segment of a 3-part series.
Yep. On
the first 2, we were talking about Agent Orange. This one, we're going to talk about CS gas and a couple other topics. But let's introduce our guests. We'll start, since we were talking about Gerry. Gerry's off to the your far left. He is a first sergeant, retired from the United States Army. He served with the 19th Combat Engineers from 1969 to 1970 in Vietnam. He is an Agent Orange survivor. He was inducted into the Connecticut Veterans Hall of Fame in 2014. He is also a life member of the following VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations: the American Legion, VFW, DAV. I don't have it written down here, but the Vietnam Veterans Association of America. Welcome back to the show, Gerry.
Thank you, Chuck.
It's great to have you.
Thank you for coming, Gerry.
We have a special guest with us tonight.
All the way from Elmira, New York.
Bob Brill. Bob drove, I said 4 hours. I think it was longer, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was 4 hours. It's an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you, Chuck, for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here.
Bob's been following this show for quite some time. We've typed a little bit on messaging on Facebook. And it's the first time we've had a guest from outside, the state lines to be here, and it's truly an honor.
Well, thank you.
Especially with your background and all that. Bob is a United States Navy veteran who served in Vietnam from 1966 to 1969.
Yes, sir.
Bob, how we usually start the show off is we usually ask the guests to give us a little bit more detail, a brief summary of where you served, what branch. We already announced that you were in the Navy, but if you can do that.
Well, my father was in the Navy in World War II. My grandfather was in World War I, and my great-great-grandfather was in the Civil War. So veterans become veterans, I believe.
Yeah.
And I followed in my father's footsteps, went in the Navy, and come back to the ship one day, and they said, "We're going to Vietnam." And I said, "When?" They said, "This afternoon." So we got to go participate in the Tet Offensive. And about 24,000 rounds of 5-inch shells later, and 4,000 rounds of 3-inch shells, and 15 gun barrels, we left Vietnam as a top gun ship in Vietnam. Wow. We supported our veterans and our people and our brothers that were in Vietnam in a war zone at a bad time, and we came back alive. We were shot at several times, and warfare is warfare.
Yeah.
Now we're back here, and we're 50 years later after Vietnam. We're still here, and it's a pleasure to be on this show with Monique and you, Chuck. Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you. Gerry, for the viewers that haven't seen you, you're definitely no stranger to this show and to the viewers, but just give the viewers a recap of where you've been and when you served.
Well, it's only a half hour, Chuck, for the show. But
I should have been more specific.
Yeah.
I'll try to condense it for you. I appreciate it. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for having my friend Bob from Elmira. It's been great, and I have been out to visit with him. I grew up on a dairy farm in upstate New York, and I went in the Army in 1968. My dad was a World War II veteran from the Battle of Bulge. My mother served in the British Army for 4 years during World War II. And her father was wounded badly in World War I. And my younger brother served in Iraq, and my other brother worked in Crypt with Ross Perot and spent quite a few years with him, working with him. And my sister was in Woodstock when I was in Vietnam, so that's kind of cool. I almost envy her that I wish I could have gone there just to see that. Yeah, I moved to Connecticut in 1976, and I owned my own business for 30 years, the Happy Hauler Towing and Recovery, and Bolt Notch RV Storage. I was in the RV business for 30 years. Went in the National Guard in 1982, retired in 1999, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. Now, Bob, you've actually owned some of your own businesses also.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you want to mention any of them, or?
Yeah, we built some of the world's fastest electronic assembly machines, and a lot of them went to Connecticut to the companies here. They could put resistors in at 20,000 an hour, and taught robotics at Lehigh University, set up the National Training Center for Electronic Automation, and then we built physical therapy machines and built the world's largest medical robot, and had factories in Pakistan, India, Philippines, and Mexico now, and
Wow.
done a lot of things.
Just a few, Bob. Wow.
It's another one of those deals where it could be over 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Show just on.
We
That
had
is
4
amazing.
Japanese karate schools in Chicago. One of our students was Muhammad Ali, taught Shotokan Shido-Ryu, and
I think we're going to have Bob back.
so it's been a boring 50 years.
Well,
Wow.
it's before we get moving again, and I think it's only important that we mention this, is that the second segment of the show, you had mentioned 2 gentlemen, fellow veterans, that you wanted to thank. One was
Ed.
Ed
Ed Ball.
Ed Ball
Ed
from
Ball from Sydney, Ohio.
yeah, I should know that. We're friends on Facebook, and of course the other was Bob. So Bob has traveled the country with Gerry in their quest to gather, acquire benefits and awareness for Agent Orange.
Well, you have to understand, Bob is a computer guru. He can find things that I never even knew about Agent Orange. And he will send it to you on mass email to the point that I can't read them fast enough when he sends them to me. But I have a library full of his knowledge. It's amazing. I'll call him up and I'll say, "Did you hear about this?" He goes, "Yeah." And 2 minutes later, it's sitting in my computer, and I get to read it over. So it's nice to have him as a go-to. It really is.
Well, we actually went a little bit longer on this segment, this part of the show. I thought it was important that we did
Yeah,
mention,
absolutely.
the relationship
Absolutely.
that you two have. And on behalf of the Veterans Corner, the viewers, we want to thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And keep in mind also where Bob lives is probably one of the nicest Vietnam museum.
Oh, really?
Vietnam Museum out where he lives. And I had a chance to see that with the VVA Post 803 runs that museum. And it's everything to do with Vietnam is in that museum.
And
in
that's
Elmira.
that's directly south of, I think, Syracuse, was it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
You did drive a long way, Bob. So I'm going to get started. So on this episode of the Veterans Corner with you, Gerry, we're going to talk about CS gas. So can you tell us and our viewers what is CS gas?
Well, I'd have to lean on Chuck on that one a little bit because he probably knows more about CS gas than I do. But about 4 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend a 50th anniversary reunion of the unit that I served with in Vietnam outside Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And I went to the museum at Fort Leonard Wood, and lo and behold, on the wall was a picture of they sprayed CS gas in Vietnam. Never knew it. And I said, why would they do that? And I'm reading the material is because when they would spray it in the tunnels, CS gas would draw your oxygen out of your lungs, right? And your eyes would tear, you'd suffocate. And they found out that when they dropped it, this is in 55-gallon drums. I mean, this is a lot of stuff. And they would see a platoon of NVA coming, and they would spray them with CS gas, get them all confused, and then go in and be easier then to overtake them. So, and I never knew that CS gas was used over there.
I didn't either.
Can I ask a question, Gerry? What does CS stand for, just in case I'm the only one that doesn't know? Is it an acronym? CS? I'm just curious. Or is that what they all called it?
That's what
it
they
was
all
called,
called it.
CS.
There's CS, there's CN. CS is the stronger. That's for riot control.
For riot control,
Okay.
that's right.
So it's not an acronym, it's just something that everybody refers to.
Yeah, I forgot what it actually stands for.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But I know there's CS, and then the lower version, which is regular mace, is CN.
I think we'll Google it before the next
yeah, and I'll tag our
session,
Facebook.
we'll find out.
I'll tag our Facebook page.
Monique, CS gas is anybody that's joined the military, regardless of what branch,
Right.
has been exposed in boot camp to CS gas.
Really?
Right.
They go in with the gas mask into a fairly large room. Actually, it's not really that big, is it?
And then you pull your mask
Yeah.
off and have to repeat your service number.
Yeah.
Put your mask back on, blow it clean,
Yeah, and then
go
come
out
out.
Wow.
the door, and it wasn't pleasant.
No, no. When Gerry said blow it clean, you really couldn't do that. The effects were already there.
Oh,
You burn your skin, and make you vomit. And
wow.
good stuff.
It's good if you got congestion.
I guess. Thank you for that, Gerry.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, oof, that's scary.
It's my understanding the troops on the ground were constantly being exposed to the gas. Can you elaborate on that? I mean, I know we just talked a little bit about it, but
Yep. Well, you know, if you spray it in a certain spot, that wind will carry it.
yes,
So you might be spraying the enemy, but if you're back here and you called in around to drop off the CS gas on the enemy and you're back here 100 yards away, you're probably going to be exposed to it as well. And that's when they'd yell gas, 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 and you put your mask on. And hopefully that
the wind plays a
the
very
wind
important
will
role
play
in
a
that,
very important role in that. Yeah.
especially in large quantities that were dropped.
And
Were there any long-term exposures to that CS gas that you know of?
as far as I know, no. It's more because it's riot control, and riot control would be to quell the enemy into submission for a short period of time, and then you could take over that position. So was a long-term effect? I don't know. I remember getting sprayed with it in basic training, and never bothered me until half hour later when you'd wash it off, or be what they call decontaminated through decon. Yep.
It's obviously the quicker you get to the water to decontaminate yourself,
Right, to wash yourself off.
the quicker the effects go away.
Yep.
But the key with that is, unlike OCs that the police officers carry and corrections, ole resin capsicum, the pepper spray, the good stuff, that is the solid stream just is primarily in your eyes. It's target specific. This, it was a vapor, so it got in your lungs.
Oh.
It was everywhere.
Suck the air right out
It
of
wasn't
your lungs.
target specific. I mean, you didn't have to have a direct hit with that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with OC. When you're using a cone applicator, you don't have to have a direct hit. If you spray something over in his corner, eventually we're gonna, and it's the same thing with the CS.
But remember, this was dropped out of helicopters and sprayed out of 55-gallon
Wow.
drums.
Large
We're not talking
quantities.
a little canister
Yeah.
that
Yeah, right. A
a
test.
police officer would carry and spray you in the eyes.
Yeah.
This was
Large quantities.
A lot of quantities.
And something too, just to touch on it, is with it doesn't just dissipate once it gets on the ground.
No.
You can be going through the jungle, in your case, and get it kicked up, or you could touch a tree trunk or something that had it on it, and you're sweating, it's hot out, and you just kind of go like this, and the next thing you know, your face is burning.
Yep.
Can I ask a question? Gerry, were these chemicals classified when they were shipped over?
As far as I know, I didn't see where they were classified. I don't even know, are they on the ship logs?
The ship log showed a lot of the shipments for these chemicals as classified over the years. So a lot of the things that you were exposed to by the chemical warfare departments in the Army were classified that their side and our side had no idea or knowledge about it. I mean, it's like a complete surprise.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know what was there. And then there's no medical treatment for it either.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when you're looking at that, the CS was the least of the problems.
Right.
The conversations we've had about Agent Orange.
But it's interesting to know that nobody ever told us about it. When I got out of the service or was in Vietnam, nobody said they were dropping CS gas on us.
Yeah.
They had no idea.
Surprise.
Surprise.
Anything else you want to talk about as far as the CS? And any stories you might have?
No, I don't really have anything other than what I read at the museum, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And
It would be considered something nowadays would be called a less than lethal, application of, to catch them off guard,
Right.
and then maybe lethal force. But it was certainly, it could be used as less than lethal.
But we were at war.
Yeah, so
Those are the enemy.
it's lethal.
So we
You catch them off guard, and
overrun the position.
yeah.
Right.
It's, well, it was interesting, and it was something that I had no idea that we had used over there. I obviously I was too young to be there, but it's something that it's the first time I've heard of it.
Yep.
And I've had the honor of talking to a lot of Vietnam veterans.
I sent you pictures of that too, by the
Yeah,
way.
you did.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to get them on a flash drive so we can put them on the show.
Yeah.
But what I am going to do is I'm going to share those all on the Facebook page.
Okay.
So
Yep.
maybe in future shows I'll have those on hand and we can show them then.
Okay.
But one term that I've heard you use,
The last show.
yeah, the last show, is people sniffers.
I had to pull this tonight because I can't remember everything. But this was something, again, I pulled off the wall at the Engineer Museum out in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. It's called People Sniffers. And they actually would wear a backpack, and the attachment would go to the weapon, and it would smell sweat. And they could detect the enemy where they were by sniffing sweat. And it would also pick up campfire smoke, cigarette smoke. And they said as far as your weapon could shoot, so probably 1,000 yards, right? So I just had to read this to you because I can't remember it all, but people sniffers. A major mission of Army's chemical units in Vietnam was the people sniffer operation. The equipment used for these operations was the detector, concealed personnel, which came in two versions, a manned backpack located on cot in the exhibit case, of course you can't see that, and the aircraft version. Both models functioned by detecting particles from either smoke or ammonia. Smoke was primarily a product of cooking fires. The ammonia was human sweat and urine. The theory was the presence of these particles would indicate human activity. So they actually put it onto helicopters because they could actually work better off of helicopters until one of the pilots said, well, I'm going to read this here first and then I'll tell you what he said. Soldiers of the 1st Cav Division Chemical Section with members of the 184th Chemical Platoon flew people sniffers. Missions daily in 68 and 69. The G3 Air arranged for Cobra gunship support. The goal was to locate and kill Viet Cong or North Vietnamese soldiers detected by the sniffer. The sniffer flight would fly to the mission area where the sniffer indicated a hit. The observer would mark the area with a colored smoke grenade. The Cobra gunships then would fire in the area with miniguns and rockets.
Wow.
So here this guy's telling me, he's radioed back to his commander. He says, well, he said, I just flew over an area and it is right full of EC. And they smoked it, they lit an area up, and they found out it was a tree full of birds. So they only did this for about a year because they couldn't really detect people as much as it was for
Wildlife.
Right.
animals.
It wasn't that, the science at that point was not
That good.
Yeah,
If you look at the backpack that they carried, it's amazing. I'd love to see one today,
Oh, yeah.
what it looked like. And that's what the soldiers would carry.
Interesting.
So can you imagine, I never heard of people sniffers.
No.
And they would go and, again, look for the enemy through sniffing.
And you were there, and you'd never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Interesting.
There's a lot of terms that we've heard in the last few shows. I was talking to some folks, out, off the show,
Yep.
out in the public, and a lot of, there's not that many shows that teach us about, Vietnam.
Right.
I know we got a lot of material to cover from other, subject matters, PTSD and stuff like that. We've had the opportunity to speak a lot on Vietnam the last few shows, but I think in the future, you know, you come up with stuff like this. I mean, this is stuff that
It is very
it's
interesting.
interesting,
It is.
and it's great to get out to the public.
So I have another topic I want to ask Bob about. All right, Operation Popeye. What is that, and what can you tell us about it?
Operation Popeye kind of went alongside of Operation Ranch Hand, but I'm not going to go into Ranch Hand. Operation Popeye is where they went in during the monsoon season, and then they seeded the clouds to create more rain. Well, the bad news is when you're up to your neck in waves, and then they're adding more water, you're going up over your neck in waves. So Operation Popeye was to deprive the Vietnamese and the North Vietnamese of their rice crops and the processing and the water, and just flood the areas through an overabundance of rain.
Interesting.
And that was a top secret operation.
Wow. Well, that's pretty smart, though, if you think about it, because to take away that source of food, which was a huge, you know, life source for them, so that was a big deal. I wonder why they called it Popeye. Maybe.
Well, because
Popeye the Sailor
Popeye was
Man.
on TV and Olive Oil was probably taken on a date. I don't know.
But that's very interesting, Bob. I didn't know about that either.
You had mentioned about waves on an aircraft carrier,
Yes.
Yeah.
50-foot waves. I couldn't imagine being on a ship.
We rode
I've been
through
in 60 foot on a frigate,
Really?
troop transport.
an FF fast frigate.
Oh, that's not a lot of fun.
No.
But you can find out where the bottom of your stomach is in a hurry.
Yeah, you get numb to it real
Did,
fast.
right? Wow.
You want a quick funny story?
Absolutely.
We're riding through a typhoon with these 50-foot waves. I mastered arms on the mess decks. So I got to take care of the mess deck. So that night we have spaghetti. So the first guy sees his spaghetti in front of him and he loses his dinner. Now this dinner plate is on the floor and this other guy slips into it. So we cleaned off the mess decks with fire hoses and switched to sandwiches. No more spaghetti for a week.
And that was on a carrier.
That was on that was on the destroyer.
Yeah. Okay. Just okay.
There's a lot
yeah.
of people on that boat.
Well, you know, I mean, we used to have to shut the
Ship.
the mess decks down,
Wow.
tie up the chairs, and yeah, there was no. I mean, up on a bridge they had bars welded into the overhead that went forward and aft, and those were to hang on to.
Yes.
You know, at the age of 18, 19, you're relieving the watch and you're saluting with this hand, you're holding on with this hand, and your feet are pointing out this, you know, the port door. You know, I think I'd be going out the port door right now at this point in my life.
What did
Well,
you
you know
ever
what I
do?
like about this show is that we don't have to stick to any particular topic.
Yeah.
And we can to be diversified and teach other people. And so we actually would gain information as well, because I learned from Bob, as I learned from you.
Yeah.
And this is a very educational show.
Yeah, and it's been even, I mean, for us being hosts, you know,
Very.
we've had so many groups. We've only got probably about a minute. One minute. I just got the 1 minute warning here. I do want to do something this evening, and that's thank our crew. The crew, without them, the viewers wouldn't have a show. We are the face piece of the show, and I'm real bad with names.
You want me to do it?
You know what? You're a
I
little-
will mess them up, and then you can just
I can blame you.
delegate
And
that to me. So we have Miriam Moate, Marie Benelli, Bryant Burney.
those are on the camera.
Yes, we have Lizzie Crawford, who is our director. Holly Williams is on sound, and then we have Joe Sanborn, who's our graphic guy.
You know, it's a special thank you to those folks. Like I said, without the crew, this show would not be possible.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, we want to thank you very much. We are going to do another show. We got about 5 seconds left. So, with that being said, thank you very much for
Thank you,
being here,
thank you,
Bob.
thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
being here again.
Chuck.
That's about all the time we have. We want to thank the viewers for watching us. I'm Chuck Wooden.
And I'm Monique Melanson Hunter.
Good night, and we'll see you next time on the Veterans Corner.